I will turn this over to my colleague from Maryland, who has arrived with exactly perfect timing, to introduce our final participant, the Honorable Calvin Ball, County Executive of Howard County, Maryland.
Perfect. Thank
Senator
you.
Alsobrooks.
Thank you so much, Senator Whitehouse, for organizing today's important discussion. And I am so pleased to welcome my good friend, County Executive Calvin Ball, to the Senate today. Like me, Calvin is a proud, lifelong Marylander. And in 2006, he made history when he was elected the youngest chairperson of the Howard County Council. He also made history again in 2018 when he became the first African American to be elected Howard County Executive. And last night, I was pleased to join County Executive Ball at a town hall in Howard County, and we heard from over 1,000 Marylanders about the devastating impacts of this administration's workforce reductions and funding freezes. The uncertainty and chaos is having a real negative consequence on the ground and in our state, and in every state across the country, red and blue alike. I am glad that we're taking the time to elevate local stories about the impacts, and want to say to our county executive, thank you so much for joining us here today.
County Executive Bell, thank you for being here, sir. Ball, County Executive Ball.
Well, thank you so much, and good afternoon, Senators Whitehouse, Alsobrooks, other distinguished senators, and hardworking staff of the Environment and Public Works Committee. I'm Calvin Ball, and during the last 7 years, it has been my honor to serve as county executive. Located in the heart of Maryland, Howard County is conveniently situated between the city of Baltimore and our nation's capital. Maryland is home to major federal institutions, including Fort Detrick's and Meade, the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Even more importantly, our state is home to more than 140,000 federal employees and tens of thousands more federal government contractors. They are courageous public servants who have built their careers serving the greater good and the American people. Just yesterday, I joined Senators Alsobrooks and Van Hollen and Congresswoman Elfreth to host a town hall that was attended personally by more than 1,000 people and virtually by thousands more. We saw their sadness and felt their distress. This period of heightened instability and uncertainty has been anxiety-inducing for federal workers and those impacted across our country. Local governments are facing concerns about federal funding across the nation, from Vermont to California. We estimate that the total impact of federal aid to Howard County, if it is cut, could be more than $150 million. This funding supports vital operations and capital infrastructure projects necessary for the safety and well-being of our residents. As past president of the Maryland Association of Counties, I want to especially thank the National Association of Counties for their efforts to advocate for counties across our great nation. Any freeze of federal funding could significantly impair any county's ability to sustain support for important operations and initiatives. Among them are food access programs for seniors, including those with mobility challenges or chronic health conditions. Last year alone, we saw a 23% increase in households served at our local food bank. Victims services, victims of child abuse, child neglect, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Located along the eastern seaboard with major north to south and east to west connectors, Howard County is a critical nexus of human trafficking prevention efforts. In recent years, we have identified and provided a comprehensive service to more than 100 victims of sex and labor trafficking. Opioid and substance misuse treatment. Between 2018 and 2024, non-fatal overdoses have fallen more than 85% in Howard County, and fatal overdoses have fallen by approximately 43%. These successful efforts have been supported in part by federal funds and emergency preparedness efforts, including disaster response and infrastructure projects. Now, regarding infrastructure, halting or rescinding federal funds could significantly impact our ability to deliver critical projects needed to ensure the public safety and economic vitality of our historic Main Street in Ellicott City. In 2011, 2016, and 2018, devastating and deadly floods washed away the livelihoods, caused tens of millions of dollars in damage, and tragically claimed 3 lives. In 2018, less than a month after taking office, we launched Ellicott City Safe and Sound, a comprehensive flood mitigation plan through major climate-resilient infrastructure projects. Currently, federal funding for this plan includes a $75 million WIFIA loan from the EPA and $20 million in funding from FEMA. The total Safe and Sound infrastructure plan costs roughly $250 million, of which more than a third is federal funding. Uncertainty about federal funding places Howard County in an extremely precarious position, assuming tremendous financial risk. We know that at least $20 million in FEMA funds for these projects have been halted pending review, threatening our continued progress on these life-saving infrastructure projects. Similarly, FEMA has paused grants related to emergency management functions at the local level. Whether it's responding to devastating wildfires in California or flood mitigation in states like Rhode Island and Maryland, these infrastructure grants and emergency response funds support disaster recovery funds and emergency coordination with local, state, and federal government. Without this support, we are all less equipped to respond to emergency weather incidences, which are on the rise due to worsening climate change. Compounding these challenges, FEMA recently canceled all National Fire Academy classes, leaving many firefighters without critical training and harming our nation's ability to respond effectively to firefighting incidences around our great nation. We also understand that funds through the United States Department of Transportation that are not yet under agreement have been paused, and for Howard County, this jeopardizes more than $4 million in funds through the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which supports electric vehicle infrastructure in partnership with the Maryland Department of Transportation. We also have concerns about the federal carbon reduction grants for Howard County, which support multimodal transportation to better connect our residents to transit, as well as expand access to electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Both are part of our local strategy to combat climate change and promote energy independence, as well as health and wellness. And beyond infrastructure, we are gravely concerned about the impact of recent executive action by the Trump administration and Elon Musk to decimate the federal workforce. Tens of thousands of Howard County workers, residents, are federal workers or contractors, and Howard County receives the highest amount of the second highest amount of federal contracting dollars in the state of Maryland, totaling more than $6 billion in 2024 alone. In Maryland, recent estimates place that number of federal workers that have been fired, eliminated, or resigned at tens of thousands. And this has thrown our county, our state, and our nation into turmoil as thousands of our constituents are searching for employment. While talented and strong counties simply do not possess the resources to shift funding within their budgets to backfill large holes that may be left by loss in federal funds, especially now. The actions of Elon Musk and Doge have also impaired the federal government's ability to deliver core services. And as you recently noted in your letter to the EPA, proposed plans by Musk and Doge to slash the workforce or spending would have disastrous consequences on the delivery of infrastructure projects and climate change mitigation. I believe that collaboration is effective and efficient as a strategy, and the counties stand ready to collaborate. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to share with you this afternoon and look forward to ongoing dialogue.
Thank you very much, County Executive Ball. Senator Alsobrooks.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I have just a few questions for County Executive Ball. We had as you know, at the town hall last night and had the opportunity to hear from a good number of federal employees. And I know that Howard County houses a disproportionate share of federal workers who are either in the government or contractors. And I'm just wondering, I'm sure that you've heard so many stories from these patriots who have had their livelihood disrupted, and wonder whether you can share some of the stories that you've heard from civil servants who are losing their jobs and the work that they do that we know is so very important to our country and for Marylanders.
Well, thank you, Senator Alsobrooks, and thank you so much for your leadership, not only here in Washington, but throughout the great state of Maryland. We've heard from so many federal employees and contractors of not only the uncertainty, some of them have even at the same time of getting resignation letters where they were trying to be forced out, also got letters saying that they should be promoted because their supervisor has left. So there's these mixed messages. They are unsure. They are unsure about how to address keeping a roof over their head, food on the table. Those who are being forced to come back, we're going to look at traffic issues, child care issues. There are, of course, the mental health strain, but some who were forced out, they were had significant mental health and surgeries scheduled. And then some, frankly, even left the private sector for the stability of the federal government. They were bringing their time, their talent, their experience to serve the American people in such a noble way, and here they are being tossed aside.
You know, we heard, I think, from a number of them who said they love their work, and we know they do very important work on behalf of our country, and I wonder whether you just might also be able to share some of the stories of people and some of what they've done. So, for example, I know that we had a number of nuclear scientists who were terminated, and of course, they learned very quickly that these were vital employees, and the administration went about trying to rehire them right away and couldn't find them. So I know you may also have heard about some of the important work that they do, and I wonder if you can just share some of what you've heard about which agencies they represent and the work they've done.
That's right. The haphazard way that people have been let go, being told that it was because of them being ineffective employees or poor performance, and then having years of documented excellent performance has been unacceptable. And you mentioned not only nuclear scientists, some of the brightest, hardest working people who are serving not only here but abroad. Those who work in cybersecurity. Howard County has nearly 300 cybersecurity companies in and around us. We are close to Fort Meade, as you know. So cybersecurity threats that we see across the world, we have people who were serving in the federal government, keeping us safe, who, as you noted very astutely, were let go, and then they tried to find them, and they couldn't find them. And now we are more vulnerable as a country because of the haphazard way that Doge and Elon Musk have gone about that.
Now, I know in addition to the disruption that's been caused by these terminations to individuals and to their families, it's also been very disruptive to our localities. And I know that the Trump administration, at some point public officials were calling him a builder, and said that throughout his career he made his name constructing big things, and that he supposedly really wanted to rebuild infrastructure in America. And the Biden administration did just that, actually, by making a bold bipartisan investment in the infrastructure through the bipartisan infrastructure law. Yet now the Trump administration's freezing these dollars that Congress appropriated. And so you mentioned, I know, the Ellicott City Safe and Sound, but wanted to know if you could tell us more about some of the specific infrastructure projects that are in jeopardy in Howard County as a result of this administration's 180-degree turn on investing in infrastructure.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Senator. Just when it comes to Safe and Sound, we have already been allocated a $75 million WIFIA loan. The first drawdown is actually expected for within the next week of $10.8 million. And this has been previously available funds, but we are hopeful that we will even be able to draw down these monies. We are talking about transportation projects when it comes to multimodal. And the instability and the lack of predictability not only hurts our work with the private sector, but as costs are going up because of the haphazard use of tariffs and the construction costs, not only are they freezing the money, but the cost of actually doing the projects is going up. So we had costs that were locked in based upon funding that was promised on the full faith and credit of the federal government that is now in jeopardy.
And the cost. So now, I also just want to ask you, when we talk about freezing funds, I know there is a lot of uncertainty that's been caused as a result of this administration's freezing of funds, and you mentioned some uncertainty around the Ellicott City Safe and Sound project, but can you tell us a little bit more about some of the other projects and how you are concerned about the increase in costs to those projects as a result of the frozen funds?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Senator. Howard County has been awarded $20 million from the Maryland Department of Emergency Management and Resilient Management Revolving Fund. That $20 million is spread evenly across 4 safe and sound projects: our Extended North Tunnel, Maryland Avenue culverts, our NC3 pond, and T1. These loans are backed by FEMA funds. And at this time, FEMA funding passing through the state is currently frozen for federal review. In January of 24, MDOT received $4.4 million grant from the Electric Vehicle Charger Reliability and Accessibility Accelerator Program, funding set aside from the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program to repair and replace up to 25 electric charging stations in 6 counties across the great state of Maryland, and approximately 11 of those were in Howard County. MDOT was unable to execute the grant agreement before the administration changed, and as a result, this grant is now paused due to general grant-making process reviews, and there are numerous stories in Howard County, throughout Maryland, and throughout America.
Yeah, unfortunately, throughout. I just have one final question for you, and this is an area of public safety. This is yet another area that the president claimed to have cared so much about. And he's talked a lot about it, yet we've had such a dramatic reduction in the federal workforce. And again, the freezing of funds that we talked about that we believe is actually making us less safe by the moment in Maryland and across the country. So I wonder whether you could elaborate on some of the negative consequences of this administration's actions on public safety as you see it in your county.
I think one of our top responsibilities is to keep our communities safe. And we see, for example, Howard County relies upon FEMA funds, not only for capital infrastructure, but also to address national disasters, flood mitigation, and also for key personnel that staff our Emergency Operations Center. Freezing funds means that counties and cities are less resourced, less equipped, and less prepared to respond to emergencies and keep our communities safe and informed. And as I noted previously, FEMA recently canceled all National Fire Academy classes, leaving Maryland and other county firefighters without critical training and harming our nation's ability to respond effectively to not only natural disasters, but frankly, when people just call 911 and they're expecting consistency, they're expecting reliability, they're expecting sometimes for somebody to save their lives on their worst day of their life, the federal government and the funding freezes of FEMA have put that in jeopardy.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Senator.
Thank you very much, Senator Alsobrooks. Executive Ball, you have been administering the affairs of your county for a while, both as county executive and then on the council beforehand. When a person is let go from their job, if it is mishandled, does the county, in this case, potentially face some liability?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I'm going into my 20th year as an elected official in Howard County. And when people are let go not improperly, it exposes the county. It exposes the county unnecessarily to all kinds of liability, not only financial, but reputational.
There's a way you do it, and there's a way you don't do it.
Correct.
So, and as you're doing that, you have to take the reputation of the individual employee who's being terminated into account, correct?
Correct.
You can't say things about them that are not true, for instance, as a part of that firing process without facing liability.
Exactly, Mr. Senator.
So when a federal official says something false about an employee, like that they are not performing adequately, which is at the heart of their work reputation, when in fact, as you pointed out, there may be years of documentation of their excellent performance, are there remedies available?
Yes, not only have they exposed the country to financial liabilities, which there will be remedies financially, but also to reputational, and there's a chilling effect to the rest of the worker, employee, and to the private sector who is now wondering, how do I want to invest? And so I think to your question, as far as the remedy, I think there would not only be likely a financial remedy, but sometimes the person will then have to be reemployed, and there are just numerous impacts that are detrimental, I think, to the country, unnecessarily.
So let me ask you a hypothetical. You are the county executive.
Correct, county executive.
You have an employee who has the authority to hire and fire.
Correct.
Subordinate of yours.
Mm-hmm.
That subordinate of yours uses that authority to fire someone in your organization, and in the context of doing so, falsely claims that the individual was engaged in subpar or inadequate performance, when in fact their performance was at a fully competent and capable level. You find out about that, what this individual did, your subordinate to their subordinate in terms of the firing process. What would your reaction be as an employer to someone who reports to you engaging in that kind of misconduct related to a firing under your overall supervision?
Not only would I be angry, but frankly, they'd have to be held accountable. And I would recognize
disciplinary consequences.
There will be disciplinary consequences, and I would recognize that that is a reflection of me. When people under my employ do things, there is a certain reputational impact to the entire county and to me. And so there are going to have to be consequences.
Well, I will call this to an end. I am very grateful to each of you for coming and sharing your expertise and your experiences. This does help us inform our work going forward, and also helps provide some actual concrete, real-life human detail around the broad, vague, and generic assertions that they're just trying to find fraud, waste, and abuse. Thank you all very much.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you for doing this.